what are the best haunted places in the world. From Amityville to the Tower of London, there are plenty of places around the world that are rumored to be haunted by spirits, who never seem to want to move on from this realm of the living. But what if we told you there was somewhere even scarier? A place where not only is it completely abandoned, but it's also dangerous. Welcome to Pripyat, the city that still glows in the dark. This abandoned town is one of the most irradiated places in the world, making it completely uninhabitable for humans. And yet people still go there, since its population was evacuated nearly 40 years ago. This strange town has become a popular destination for thrill-seekers and those who want to see just how bad things have gotten here. It might not be a ghost town, but it might as well be. So what happened here, and why is it so radioactive? Let's take a look at the scary truth behind this ghost town. In the early 1970s, construction began on a new Soviet nuclear power plant outside of the small city of Pripyat. This would be the largest nuclear power plant in all of Europe. And so, to accommodate all of the workers who would be coming to work here, a brand new city was constructed nearby. Before long, more than 50,000 people had made their homes in this city, which was named Pripyat after the local river. But they weren't the first. The area that became Pripyat had already been inhabited thousands of years before by humans. There were several Neolithic burial mounds in the area, and the locals claimed that the area was also home to ancient artifacts like swords, spears, and other tools. There were also many old buildings and homes in the area that had been left abandoned. When the residents learned about the plans for the nuclear power plant, these buildings were simply demolished, clearing the way for the new city. Little did the residents know that their homes would soon be replaced by another kind of ghost town. During the Cold War, the Soviets worked hard to expand their nuclear arsenal. One of their goals was to master the use of nuclear power for energy. With the right technology, nuclear energy could be used to power everything from homes to entire cities. To them, it seemed like an unlimited source of energy that could solve many of the problems facing the Soviet Union. All they had to do was figure out how to control it. The construction of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant was just one part of their efforts. Several other plants were built across the country, each one more advanced than the last. But like all good things, it didn't last. On April 26, 1986, something went horribly wrong at reactor number 4. A test was being conducted to determine if the plant could safely be used to generate electricity while also powering safety systems. But something went wrong and the reactor overheated, causing a partial meltdown of the core. Before long, it was clear that the damage was severe, and evacuations were ordered. As the situation grew increasingly dire, the order was given to evacuate the entire city of Pripyat. This wasn't done without reason. In fact, it was the single best decision that was made during this disaster. No one could get close enough to the reactor to fight the fire, without being exposed to lethal levels of radiation. It soon became clear that the damage was so great that no human could ever live in this area again. For decades, the government attempted to keep the disaster a secret, claiming that only 31 people had died as a result of the meltdown. However, this was later disputed, and it is now thought that up to 200,000 people may have died due to the disaster. But if the whole city had to be evacuated, after the evacuation order was given, the residents of Pripyat fled to the nearest big city. But when they arrived, they were met with horrifying news. The authorities had sealed off the borders, and no one was allowed in or out. The people who had been evacuated were trapped in a quarantine zone. They were told that they couldn't return home, but they also weren't allowed to leave the area. Eventually, the government did allow some of them to leave, but not before subjecting them to months of psychological testing. They wanted to see how the disaster had affected the residents, and if they showed any signs of radiation poisoning. Those who were deemed healthy were allowed to go free, but the rest were kept in the quarantine zone. With most of the residents gone, the animals that lived in the area were next. All of the pets in the area were rounded up and taken away. This included dogs, cats, pigs, cows, chickens, and more. Most of these animals were simply euthanized, but some were taken to research facilities to study the effects of the disaster on animals. In the decades since, wildlife has returned to the area, but none of it is safe to consume. The fish and deer that roam the area are highly radioactive and should never be eaten. So what is life like in the city today? It's been nearly 4 decades since the disaster, yet the city remains largely unchanged. Buildings are still standing, and many of them are in good condition. Graffiti can be seen on many of the structures, but for the most part, the city looks as though its residents simply vanished into thin air. There are schools, playgrounds, and even amusement parks that are still intact. Nature has begun to reclaim much of the city. However, trees and shrubs can be seen growing through sidewalks and parking lots. There are also several cemeteries in the area where the graves have been left abandoned. Many of the headstones have been spray painted to prevent looters from stealing them, but it hasn't stopped them all. Some of the cemeteries have been completely stripped of headstones. There are also several churches in the area that have been left abandoned. Most of them have been stripped of their valuable items, but some remain intact. Why do people still visit Pripyat today? The most obvious reason is curiosity. It's hard to imagine a city that's been completely abandoned for nearly 4 decades, but the longer you look at it, the easier it becomes. People come from all over the world to tour the city and see what life was like here. There are also those who come here to pay their respects. Many of the residents who died in the disaster are buried in unmarked graves. Some people come to the city to try to find the grave of a loved one who died here, and others come to simply pay their respects to those who lost their lives. And finally, there are those who come here for a thrill. The city is highly radioactive, and it's not safe to be here for extended periods of time, but that doesn't stop thrill seekers from coming here to test their luck. There are even rumors that some people come here to commit crimes, such as looting or spray painting buildings. How dangerous is it to visit Pripyat today? As we mentioned earlier, the city is highly radioactive, and it's not safe to be here for extended periods of time. However, the government has designated certain areas as safe to visit. These are usually areas that don't have high levels of radiation. The government has also set up checkpoints throughout the city to ensure that visitors don't stray into dangerous areas. However, there have been cases of people getting lost in the city and being exposed to high levels of radiation. There are also rumors that some people have intentionally tried to find the most radioactive areas of the city, so they could claim that they deep into the most dangerous place on Earth. Whatever the case, it is important to remember that the city is still highly radioactive and should not be entered without proper authorization. So what will become of Pripyat? The city has been abandoned for nearly 4 decades, and it's as unlikely that anyone will ever live here again. However, the government has discussed the possibility of turning the city into a nuclear research facility. It's also possible that the city will remain abandoned for centuries to come. We'll let you decide. Do you think you could visit Pripyat without getting scared? Or does the idea of a ghost town that's also highly radioactive sound terrifying to you? Either way, we hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, Make sure to stay tuned for more videos about abandoned places.